Hello, fight fans. Seattle Mike, MMA with friends. Hit that like button, subscribe, all that. Make sure you ring that bell so you're notified whenever I drop a new video or go live like every major boxing and MMA event. Now that that's out of the way, how many of you watched this last Saturday's Roy Jones Jr. versus Mike Tyson? I have a feeling it was a lot. I'm not sure how many people paid for it. Just from listening to people in the chat and stuff. Don't worry, I'm not going to snitch anybody out. What are we looking at with 2020 Mike Tyson? Roy Jones Jr., I mean, I don't care what the judges said, and I'm a little upset at one of my legendary heroes, Vinny Pazienza, right now for that horrible scorecard. I think he should get smacked again by Roy Jones. But Mike Tyson, he had just enough to make us wonder, what's he going to look like in his next fight? And the fight after that. He says he wants to fight every 2 months. What did we get for $50? Well, we got Jake Paul knocking Nate Robinson. And I will admit, that was pretty entertaining. Badou Jack, I had never seen that guy fight. That was a lot of fun, and I apologize, I don't remember the names of the two gentlemen. I really should look them up and give them credit. That first fight, that was definitely fight of the night. That was a good fight. Those guys were in a good scrap. But Mike Tyson, he showed some glimpses of the old Mike Tyson for sure. And for 54 years old, I mean, he was the baddest man on the planet at one time. I think he's probably the baddest 54-year-old man on the planet right now, at least without, extra, the PEDs and all that stuff, which I don't think he's on because he doesn't look like Shannon Briggs, which I actually talked to Wyatt Matheson today, YouTuber and sometimes co-host on the show. I was talking to him about him fighting Shannon Briggs, and he's like, dude, Shannon Briggs is way too big. He's like, Shannon Briggs is full of that TRT. So am I interested in seeing the natural Mike Tyson? Am I even maybe a little bit regretful that I bought this event? I expected too much out of this, guys. I will admit this. I expected too much out of this. A lot of people were saying, oh, they can't go for knockout. They're not going to have the judges. I listened a little more. I knew that they were going to have some judges, some WBC judges. And I knew that it was going to be really hard for them to stop these guys from going for the knockout. And Roy Jones Jr. ate a big left hook early in the fight. So I was like, wow, this is promising. Tyson's going to go for the knockout. And he may have been. At times, it was hard to say. Roy ran a lot. I love Roy Jones, but this was not the Roy Jones that I grew up with. He ran a lot. He held a lot. And if he won 1 to 2 rounds, which I did give him 2, they were doubtful. You could have given, if you gave Mike 7 or 8, I don't hate you for it. If you gave Roy more than 2, I don't know what you were thinking. But will we pay for this Mike? Will I pay for this Mike again? This Mike Tyson at 54 years old? I don't know. I have to see more than what I seen right there against Roy. And maybe I'm spoiled. I can get nostalgia from going on YouTube and watching old Mike Tyson videos. And I am one of the biggest Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. Fans there is. That's how I got into the sport. I was into that way before MMA. But he's going to have to fight some competition, or he's going to have to fight for the knockout. He's going to have to look for the knockout, and he's going to have to fight some guys that want to engage with him too. And I thought Roy might engage more. He landed some decent counters at times. It was very obvious that Roy had studied a lot of tape of the movement of Mike because of some of the things that he did, some of the things that he did to get out of the way. And it was nice to see both guys show decent head movement, really good head movement for guys in their 50s. Both guys ducking under shots. Roy ducking under some big haymakers from Mike. Mike even ducking under some jabs. So for that age, I mean, that's incredible. But what do we want to watch? We're in the golden age of MMA. Hopefully, we're having a resurgence in boxing. You got Spence and Garcia coming out next week. If you're watching this in November, that's going to be this next Saturday, a week after the Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson fight. But it was a bit of a tease. It was a bit of a tease, to be honest. And I would like to see Mike Tyson. I'd like to see him in some 3-minute rounds. I'd like to see him in maybe 10 rounds. I don't know. I don't know. I thought I would like the 2 rounds better because it would give these guys more time to recharge. And Mike did seem, his cardio seemed great. He didn't really seem to get tired. Roy was, he was sucking wind in the second round in between rounds. So, I mean, you could tell that Mike was in much better cardio shape than Roy was, which was a bit surprising that Roy was so out of shape, being that he was in the ring February 2018, and I know he's training guys all the time. He did come in at 210, which is a bit heavy for him. Tyson, of course, came in at 220. But yeah, I'd like to see Mike fight guys maybe that didn't hold as much. I'd like to see how much he improves. But I want to see him go for the knockout. I don't want to see a glorified sparring match. Mike said after the fight, he wanted to go 8 rounds. He was glad he went 8 rounds. And that's fine for this one. But I don't want to see Mike go 8 rounds every time, to be honest. I at least want to see some knockdowns. Like the exhibition he did the first time he came back, and he knocked the guy down in the first round. That was good. That was entertaining. But yeah, I want to see him crack some guys. And, he could have put Jones down or out with that left hook early in the fight. Yeah, I'd like to see some more aggression. I'll tell you what I did like about this event is I enjoyed Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr.'s pre-fight interviews, them coming on the Rogan podcast, and watching Mike Tyson's post-fight interview. It's about 25 minutes, and I'll leave a link to that here. It was very cerebral. It was very interesting. Mike Tyson, he talked about his relationship with boxing. This is where he belongs. He talked about his relationship with death and, the lack of the fear of death or of getting injured in the ring, which I thought was very interesting. And that, I enjoyed that interview, though, of those 25 minutes. If I have to be honest, I enjoyed more than the actual fight. Will I continue to cover his fights if there are these kinds of events? Yeah, probably, because I'm a big Mike Tyson fan, and as long as there's interest from you guys, as long as there's interest from the viewers that want to keep seeing him come out, and I think he probably can do a little better. He is at 54. He said, look at me, this is after 1 fight. He goes, wait till after 10 fights. He said, I fought 15 times in a year back in the day. I can fight every 2 months. I don't know at 54 if he can fight every 2 months. It's a lot easier to get injured, as he knows. He said when he made that first promo video, he, aggravated his sciatica nerve and was laying in bed for a couple weeks. So I don't know if he can stay injury-free. I know his diet's pretty good, but I think this is what Tyson, maybe what he needs. He says he belongs here, and if he can get this out in exhibitions, or he can get this out just going to the gym, maybe sparring with some guys sometimes. He said that, he had guys beat him up in sparring, guys really beat him up, and he said he enjoyed it. He said he lives to be humbled. That was very, very interesting and very insightful. I feel like Mike Tyson 2.0, very honest Mike Tyson. I think he's always been very honest. Not only is the most likable guy, he's much more likable now. He's still on edge, though. You can see it's funny when he's talking about giving to charities. It's like, what charities you giving to, Mike? Because he's getting real excited. He's talking about helping people, and he's got the same demeanor and cadences sometimes of when he would talk about pushing a guy's nose into his brain, and maybe that's just the way Mike Tyson talks. He's like half Mother Teresa, half Hannibal Lecter when he's speaking, I guess. But the whole thing was interesting. The event was interesting. Like I said, I wanted too much out of the fight. I was a little disappointed. I was more disappointed in Roy. I think the biggest problem is going to be finding the right opponents for Mike. And, he may be fighting some so-called bums. He's 54. He might be fighting, if he's fighting younger guys, maybe he fights some guys that have a couple fights. I'm not sure how many guys, in their late 40s or into their 50s are going to be willing to fight him. He was asked in an interview about a fight with Evander Holyfield, and he said, well, Holyfield's business associates keep talking to my business associates. Maybe Holyfield needs to come and talk to me. I like his hand-on approach. The league's only legends, the production, especially for the first time of doing something. I don't know who was helping him with production, but he did not put out a bad product. The camera was good, the sound was good, the graphics were good, the runway was great, the announcing was good. I felt like I was watching a high-production event. It almost reminded me of like an HBO or Showtime event. I was very impressed with the production of the event. I do like these guest judges. Something I like to be entertained. I am a traditionalist in a lot of ways, a pugilist, but I'm a fight fan. I'm a fan. I want to be entertained. I watch fighting to be entertained. So when a guy like Snoop Dogg gets on the mic, I'm not upset. I'm entertained. But I can watch this. I'm not a casual. I don't need to be informed on everything. I like to see, though, kind of like a comedic act, almost. You have the straight guy who really knows, the technical side of boxing. You get in an Al Bernstein, a Sean O'Grady, a Max Kellerman, a Jim Lampley, those guys, even a Roy Jones Jr. And then you put him with a guy like a Snoop Dogg that keeps things fun, keeps things energized. And it's almost like Joe Rogan, and Mike back in the day in the UFC. Everybody knew Mike Goldberg. He was not an MMA aficionado, but he had one next to him. And he got very enthusiastic during the fights. He had some great punchlines, and I did enjoy listening to Snoop on the mic. Let me know what you guys think, though. What did you guys think of this event? If you watched it, if you listened to it, I hope I made it sound as exciting as it was, or more so. Would you pay to see Mike Tyson in the future? Would you just come here and view? Or would you not want to watch it at all? I know you guys did do a poll, and it sounded like for those of you that voted, there's definitely some interest to see him fight again. So I would hope we would see him go for some knockouts in the future. And he said he would like to do some real fights, like some 3-rounders and stuff. So that's great. But he also said he likes the exhibition because it's for the charity. And, there's positives to the exhibitions as well. And I know what his positives are. I know why he likes the exhibition, because he doesn't have to worry about all these promoters trying to get their piece. He doesn't have to worry about Bob Arum Don King trying to jump in there, trying to help promote him. Even Dana White, who talked about an Anderson Silva Roy Jones Jr. fight, which has been rumored, and I don't think really anybody wants to see that after their last two performances. Let's let that rest, in my opinion. But I'll watch Mike again. Let's give it another shot. I'm glad some money's going to charity. I don't know what percentages are. I know he said some charities in Brooklyn and around the country. But, just give me your guys' thoughts. As always, I love you. I respect you. And I'll see your fine asses later.